the DSP. As always, I'm your host, Josh. And once again, this episode is brought to you by Great Lakes Disc. Whether you're looking for your new favorite disc or some cool new gear, you can just use the Linktree link and then go shopping and they'll hook you right up. Tonight's guest is a very awesome guest. As we all know, it's Holyn. So welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah. So where are you from, and how did you even get into disc golf? Like where's that all begin?
So I'm originally from Grapevine, Texas. That's not where I got started playing disc golf. There's a lot of disc golf in DFW, but I actually got started when I was living out in Southern California. So I lived in Mission Viejo for about 4 years after college, just because that's where I was able to find a job. So I got my start kind of in the Huntington Beach, La Mirada disc golf area. Yeah, and that would have been end of 2019, start of 2020.
Ooh, nice. So you're like pre-COVID or like just like starting of that when you got in? Or
Yeah, pre-COVID technically. So my very first tournament was like March 7th or something of 2020, like that first weekend of 2020. And, just as we're like, oh, this was great, we're gonna do all these tournaments this summer, everything got shut down like days later. So I'm COVID adjacent, but I consider myself like I was pre-COVID.
yeah, yeah, that's pretty cool. Do you remember like your first like actual like tournament like after like COVID and things started like opening back up? Do you remember like how that felt heading into your first tournament?
Yeah, I mean, I guess because in California, they didn't have a ton of tournaments during COVID because like they were a little bit more strict on their shutdown. So I actually had to go, I went all the way to Arizona so that I could play and I played the Maricopa Open at the start of 2021. And I played a couple like AM tournaments, like as we were allowed to have them in California, as it was maybe only a handful. Um, and yeah, I didn't ever play one where it was like so strict that we were like wearing masks during tournament or anything. But yeah, it kind of killed the like tournament scene in Southern California for a little while because they've recovered now, but they had been having, they had multiple A tiers, they had Debo, they had, La Mirada had all these tournaments and it like killed it. And there was a couple of tournaments that survived kind of in the San Diego area that I was able to play. But COVID really killed the tournament scene. But yeah, as for like the first one right after, I don't even really know which one I would consider the first one right after because it was outside, we didn't really have to
Yeah,
do a whole lot of the COVID stuff.
yeah, that makes sense. What division did you start out in, or did you just start like just go right for FPO because there wasn't that many females playing?
No, I started in the AM division. I tried to start FA3, but at the time they didn't have enough women to like warrant having three amateur divisions. So they just kind of like threw us all together in FA1. And so that was that one tournament in March right before COVID hit. And then I played a few others. And then the last AM tournament I played was the Goat Hill. So the AM side of challenge at Goat Hill. And I think I averaged like just over 900 rated. And so decided like that was probably a good time to move up if I'm starting to average that. And then I don't remember exactly what the first FPO tournament was. It might have been Maricopa. It might have been something before that.
Yeah. Did you have any like sports background before you got into disc golf, or is like disc golf like your first like start into any type of sports?
Yeah, I was a volleyball player for 10 years, including through college. So middle school all the way through college, played Division 3. And then I did a couple other sports in high school. I did a little bit of basketball, a little bit of track. But volleyball was like the main one. And then after college, kind of between college and finding disc golf, I did a little bit of powerlifting.
Nice. Do you still power lift, or is that kind of like done now that you're just disc golfing?
Yeah, I don't power lift per se. I do still lift, and that there's a lot of crossover there, but I don't train the big three lifts. I more kind of tailor things towards what I think is going to be good for disc golf.
That's pretty cool. So in your local area where you are right now, what's the disc golf scene like? Is there a lot of tournaments going on, lots of leagues, or is everything kind of spread out?
Yeah, I'm kind of in the middle of nowhere. So I'm just outside of Duncan, Oklahoma, which Duncan's pretty small, and then we're about half an hour outside of that. Our nearest town is so small we don't even have a stoplight, and we have one restaurant. There is a course nearby, Duncan Lake, which, I mean, it's the lines are in the design of the course actually really good, but there's no tee pads, and the baskets have seen better days. And I think there's a small group of guys that gets together like on the weekends, but it's like barely a handful of players. So there's not much of a local scene. Here, if you go into like Norman or Oklahoma City, it's a little bit more thriving, but that's like a 2-hour drive. So we don't really make it up there all that often.
Oh, wow. So when you first ever, when you first got your tour card, do you remember what that was like and how like that felt finally receiving that tour card?
Yeah, I mean, I got on tour like right when the tour card was first becoming a thing. And at least for FPO, there were so like the division wasn't really big enough that we like you weren't filling all of the tour card slots, or like the tour card slots weren't filling up all of the tournaments. So that first year on tour, like I had applied for an exemption and I didn't get it, but like just purely because I was late, like I would have gotten it. And I just had to sign up. But then I think I made the tour championship that first year on tour, so got the automatic tour card. So I mean, I guess the bigger deal was getting in the tour finale. Getting the tour card was just like, all right, cool. This is a lot more convenient in terms of like signing up for events, not having to do it one at a time.
Yeah. So your first year on tour, was it kind of like eye-opening on how like good the other women were, or did you kind of feel like, oh, I can hang with these girls, no problem?
Yeah, I didn't go right on. I did a couple of events like on the tour before actually going on tour full time. So 2021, like you could still do that. Like you didn't have to have a tour card to play. Like if you had the rating, you could play, which is still somewhat true now. But that year they had Worlds in Utah and U.S. Women's in California. The Las Vegas Challenge was still on tour, and it was the first year they had OTB. So that year there were 4 tournaments really close to me, and I played all of them. And I cashed it 3 out of 4. And I think by the end of 2021, I was at like 930 something rated, which at the time was like right about the cash line. And that was like before having spent, like I was working a full-time job that whole time. So that was before having like dedicated all of my time to getting better at disc golf. And by then, like, I had met Paige and Missy and like a lot of I'd been playing with Owen Scoggins this whole time. So I had a very good idea of what like the top, yeah, because Owen Scoggins is also out of that Southern California area. So like that whole time I was coming up as an AM and kind of a pre-touring pro, like Owen was my main competition. So I had a very good idea of what the touring scene was going to be like in terms of competition.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So what are your top 5 favorite courses that you play on tour?
Yeah, I get asked that one or get asked favorite course a lot, and honestly, kind of depends on the day. Um, but I think like Crocole is definitely up there. Glendevere is up there as well, just because both of those purely like course design. The Monster also in Tampere is one of the best designed courses. Milo's one of my favorites. Just I think it's maybe not the best designed course, but just the area is really beautiful, and then also it has like special meaning to me being the first place that I won a pro tour event. And then yeah, I mean that's top 4. Top 5's hard to pick because something like Maple Hill could go there. Olympus is up there. I think that's maybe one that should get talked about more, but I think we forget because it's the first tournament of the year. But that's one that like is also just really, really well designed and really like beautiful.
Yeah, speaking of design, how are courses now kind of like this are they getting better setting up for women, or are they still kind of make more improvement for the women's divisions?
I think both of those things really are true. I think the women's course designs come a long way. Like if you look back in like 2020 and looking at like the layout we played for Las Vegas, for example, it's kind of terrible layout. It was a lot of like the holes are just like a little too far for the field to really be trying to birdie them, and so everyone ends up playing for par, and it's super boring. But like now, like basically every course we have, we'll have a few holes that are the same between MPO and FPO, but for basically every course we have either a different pin or a different tee. and they're more appropriate distances for the kinds of shapes that they're asking us to do. And as a result, we're able to actually showcase skill and their scoring separation, and it's exciting to watch. There's still always going to be that challenge, though, of like anytime you have to have two divisions with very different skill sets on the same course. You're always going to have instances where you're like, okay, well, we need to make the MPO harder, but we don't want to make it harder for the FPO. Or like, we kind of need to open this gap up for the FPO, but it's going to make it too easy for MPO. So there's always going to be this, like, if you optimize purely for one, you're kind of short changing the other. And it makes sense with there being more MPO players that it usually goes the way of the MPO players kind of being favored, which is unfortunate, but like that's kind of the reality right now. I do think, but overall, I do think our FPO course designs are the best they've ever been.
Yeah. Do you think in due time, like the tour will get big enough and then have enough following where they could separate, like have MPO go to a separate course and FPO to their own course, so it could be set up to both?
Yeah, I hope so. I hope, that FPO gets a big enough following that it can kind of stand on its own. I think right now the two divisions, like neither of them are, like maybe MPO could stand on its own, but right now we kind of need that symbiotic relationship. And I think it's worth having maybe like a little bit worse course layouts, but, having everybody there for both divisions. And I think maybe eventually it'll get there. I mean, the way like LPGA and PGA are, it probably won't be, during my career, though. It'll probably be like way off in the future.
Yeah. It'd definitely be awesome to see like disc golf explode like that. I think with the lottery, like getting involved with a sponsor, I think that'll definitely help bring in some money and hopefully make some upgrades on courses and stuff.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what they do. I don't know the ins and outs of that deal or how much money it is, but everybody seems pretty excited about it, so should be good.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, any type of cash flow into the disc golf is huge. So let's see here. So when it comes to getting ready for the Pro Tour season, do you spend a lot of time like weightlifting for it, or more time do you think you spend out in the field getting field work in?
I mean, I do both really. This is kind of the best opportunity to like lift weights and strength train because, having to fit it in when I'm on tour, I have to prioritize the event and being recovered for the event. So obviously I don't want to be like really sore, really stiff. So that kind of limits how much I can do. But then at the same time, because I'm not having to worry about events, that's like more field work. And if I want to work on form stuff, so I'll kind of like periodize my off season. I usually start with like a pretty big break from throwing, just one to let my body recover, but also just mentally because I'm usually like pretty sick of disc golf by the time I get home. And this off season, I took probably the longest break from throwing I've ever taken because I feel like the burnout was a lot more this year than it has been in years past. So I took about a month off where it was like no disc golf. I was literally just lifting weights and like sleeping and like hanging out, which was super fun. Because I'm still a gym rat at heart, so was really fun to just get to do that. And then I spent most of December actually working on my course. So upgrading some tee pads and carving some new lines, some new pin positions, that sort of thing. And then kind of backing off the gym a little bit because that's a lot of physical labor. And then kind of started, backed off the gym and then started easing into throwing. And so now I'm doing both. I probably spend about equal time per day doing each, throwing and lifting.
Yeah. What's your favorite two lifts?
My favorite two lifts.
Yeah.
Right now it's probably really liking squat because I've always lifted, back squat. That was my best lift when I was powerlifting. And then really probably like, I've been doing a lot of dumbbell bench and progressing that. So that's been a lot of fun. And not to pick a third, but we got this new thing called a Voltra. I don't know if you've heard of this. But it's by this company called Beyond Power, but it's basically like this, it's about this big, this little box that has a cable and has a motor on the inside that creates the resistance. It's very quiet, but basically it uses a little motor to create up to 200 pounds of resistance, and you can do it in 1 pound increments. It's very precise. And so we have that, and you can do a lot of cool stuff with that. So there's been some fun row variations with that I've been really enjoying.
That's really cool. So out of the whole FPO field, if you had to take 3 people to like a powerlift competition, who would you select for squat? Who would you select for deadlift? And then who would you select for bench?
And I don't know who would be best at all 3 of those, but I can tell you the 3 that I would definitely take to a meet. It would be Heidi Line, probably Kristen, and probably Jennifer Allen, because they all have like the body type for it. In fact, when I first met Haiti, I asked her, I was like, have you ever like powerlifted? Because you probably should. She's just built. Yeah, I don't know. My guess is Haiti would probably be the best bencher. And then I might put Jen on squat and Kristen on deadlift, but I'm not sure. I'm trying to guess based off of their leverage, like their leverages. Usually like for squat, you want someone who's a little bit shorter and has like shorter femurs. They're usually a little bit better for squat. And then I would guess of the 3 of them, Haiti probably does the most upper body training. I don't really know.
Yeah.
But I bet all 3 of them could do great.
Yeah, that sounds like a pretty solid team right there. I would definitely go that route. So what what lifts do you find to make the most improvement in your disc golf game?
Yeah, I mean I guess the real benefit for lifting for disc golf is it's not quite like, a sport like basketball or like, something where you're trying to be faster. You are trying to be more explosive, but I think for one, like putting on more muscle is what is going to move the weight at the end of the day, even though the weight's very little. And you can't train leverages, like you kind of have what you have, but you can putting a little bit of muscle on the frame and also strengthening your ligaments and stuff can make you a little bit more explosive and maybe get a little bit more power out of it. And then the other big thing is the injury prevention side of things. So if you're, intelligent about the way that you lift and you're going through a nice full range of motion, really emphasizing the stretch, like injury happens because your tissue's not prepared for the load that you put on it. And so if we can gradually increase our tissue's ability to handle load in the positions that we're going to be in disc golf, we can kind of help minimize our injury risk. So I really come at it from that perspective of just, I take like a pretty generally good program, which I can tweak more if I'm wanting to build muscle or if I'm wanting to build strength. And then I add just a few little tweaks to it that really tailor it towards disc golf and a couple of like mobility things that really tailor it towards disc golf.
Now, have you ever thought of like starting a weightlifting program for disc golfers?
I've thought about it. I think like probably the best I could do right now would maybe to just like put a program out there that like people could buy. The thing is, I feel like there's much better coaches out there than me for strength. Like I've been lifting weights for a very long time, so I'm very good at training myself. But like, that kind of art of coaching is something that I just haven't delved into from like a strength side of things. And like, I would never want to put a product out there that I didn't feel 100% like this is going to do amazing for people. So I would want to do a lot of like one-on-one coaching. There's all these things I would want to do first to make sure that it's like really, really solid. And I just don't have the time.
Yeah.
It's the kind of thing that, maybe once I'm not focused on being a player so much anymore, I could explore. But for right now, it's kind of the same thing with like coaching disc golf. Like it's something that I'm very interested in. And I make a lot of content that's geared towards that, but I just don't have the time to like dedicate to it to do it like with the quality that I would want to do it.
Yeah. From your videos that you put out, I'd say they're pretty good quality content. So
yeah, thank you.
Where did the whole idea come from? Like what inspired you to start putting out these videos to help disc golfers throw and improve their games?
Yeah, I mean, it started probably like midway through my first year on tour, because kind of just knowing that like, well, social media is important. Like it's not good enough to just be a really good player. Excuse me. You have to also be a player that people like follow and are invested in, because you're not always going to have, the eyeballs of being on coverage on you. In fact, I was sponsored by Dynamic Discs at the time, and they had just sent out to everybody on the team that were like, hey, this is how we're going to like do the team structures. And they had described like what you had to do to be on their top team. And it said like significant social media presence. And they didn't define it at all beyond that. And I remember asking, I think it was Holly Finley. I was like, what is significant social media presence? Like, what does that mean to you? And she's like, at least like 10,000 followers. And I was like, I'm sitting at like maybe 2 at the time. Um, and so I'm like, okay, well, what kind of content can I even make? Because I'm not a person who's gonna do skits. I've done a few of them. And, like I'll do them if it's with like Raven and Ella, because then it's like a fun thing with my friends. But that's not something I'm super comfortable doing by myself. And then like just posting videos of me throwing, like everyone does that. It's very saturated, so it's like that's not going to be it. I'm kind of like, what do I have that people would care about, that people would watch? Um, and I'm only a few years away from having learned how to play at all. So I was self-coached, so I very much am close to like and remember that struggle of like, how do I stop rounding? How do I stop doing this? And then I do have that ability to take something that's kind of complicated and really break it down and explain it to anybody. So I was like, well, I'll try this. I'll just put out like really short form like tips. And I was like, I'll do it on Tuesday and I'll call it Pro Tip Tuesday. It's got a nice alliteration to it. And like it pretty much blew up right away.
Yep.
I think I ended up getting to like something like 20,000 followers by the end of the year. It was like 15 to 20 or something like that. Because no one was really doing it at the time, and like they were literally the drills that helped me learn, so I knew they worked. And just like it was just a lot of stuff of like, yeah, okay, we all know how the mechanics work, but how do you actually get your body to do the thing? And yeah, it just like really took off.
That's really cool. So when you're like going through like a little slump in your own game, do you go back to those videos to kind of like figure out what changed and what needs to be improved on or fixed?
I mean, now I don't really do a ton of form changes in the way that I used to, because I think for the vast majority of people, you can kind of get to like really, really good, and like you probably don't need to work on form anymore. And I think I'm pretty much past that point, like well past that point. Like at this point, if I'm changing form, it's not major changes. It's like little tweaks, and it's not a ton of like videoing. It's more based off of like feel. And occasionally I'll do some tech disc sessions, but as far as I'm concerned, I'm not really trying to make major changes to my swing. It's more of like, okay, I'm really releasing, or I'm pulling it. Like, so it'll be, let's go to a field where there's maybe a couple trees and I can kind of create this gap, and I can kind of like figure out like, okay, where's that release point? How do I need to be orienting myself on the tee pad to hit these gaps? And so it's a much more intuitive method of troubleshooting, because in season, I don't want to be thinking about mechanics at all. It's like pretty antithetical to like the ideal mindset. Ideally, your brain's off and you're just like, you see the line in your head and you just go. And if you're spending like that whole week, like, okay, I need to like do this or whatever with my arm, it's like, you're just not going to perform very well. So it's like almost better to maybe have like less than perfect form, but know where that release point is and feel very in tune with it. Because like, that's just going to be a way more successful than thinking about form all the time.
Yeah, definitely. What about putting? Like, do you have little techniques to get yourself back out of, like, let's say you're just having like a mental like tournament where just like nothing's clicking. Do you have like a quick technique where you're like, all right, pull myself out, let's get back at it?
Yeah. So what I like to do, if I've got some time, like before the tournament starts, because it's again, I don't want to be thinking about form too much, but I'll kind of like stand really close to the basket and I'll just work on the upper body, and I'll just work on like, keeping everything very linear, and getting some spin on the disc. And a lot of times that means I need to like relax, because a lot of times like tension will kind of make me short things. And over time I've kind of learned like, okay, if I'm doing this, then this is probably the cause. And like there's kind of a few things that it usually is. But I'll start with that and I'll just try to like have a nice, loose, linear, very repeatable upper body motion. And then I'll kind of start to step back and I'll add a little bit of lower body, and then I'll step back further and add a little bit of lower body. But a lot of times like when I'm having putting problems, it's usually comes down to something mental. And so like, yeah, I'm going through like this mechanical kind of base drill, but really it's just about like making some putts and really simplifying things and making some putts, and then like rebuilding trust in my putt. Cause like anytime I'm missing, it's usually because I'm scared or I'm lacking confidence. And so I have to find some path back to like feeling fearless and feeling really, really confident. And so sometimes just having that, like, okay, we're going to start from ground zero, we're going to kind of build it up, and it might look slightly different than it did before, but I'm not worrying too much about like, how am I generating spin and what kind of angle? Is this a nose down putt? Is this a spin putt? Like, what kind of putt is this? Like, I don't care. I just want it to be like, I see the line and I go, just like with throws. You want to see the line and go.
Yeah. Do you focus on like a chain link when you're putting, or just like the center pole?
I actually aim at the little like nubby thing at the top of the basket. So I actually aim above the chains.
Okay.
And my putt kind of arcs and drops in.
Oh, okay. So you're a push putter, right? Or spin?
Yeah, I would say I'm kind of a push putter, so I'm like somewhere in the middle because I definitely do kind of tilt the nose up a little bit to get some extra glide. Like I wouldn't say like I'm a true nose down putter like someone like Gannon or Ricky
Yeah.
who have just like they're able to put so much pace on the disc that they can put super nose down and still get it there. I'm not quite that, so it's a little bit more flat, a little bit more nose up, but I do have a very like low to high kind of release. And because of that, like I can make a slight alteration to the nose angle and to my arm path if I want to make it a little bit more of a spin putt. So arc it less and spin it more, which I'll do depending on the wind. A lot of times for like headwinds, I don't want to really put the disc above the basket because the likelihood that it just kind of takes off. And then if I'm like putting downhill, I like to put it actually even more nose down and then just pop it above and let it like drop in. And then if I'm putting uphill, I'll put it even more nose up and maybe even a little bit of Anheuser just to kind of like zip it. And I'm almost aiming at like the bottom of the top chain assembly. So I can, because I've got I almost think of it as like a sliding scale, like pushes over here, spins over here. I'm in the middle and I can kind of slide it one way or the other depending on what I need.
That's pretty cool that you're able to do that. For me, it's just I look at the pole and I'm just like, hopefully it gets there.
Yeah. I mean, on some level, that's all of us.
Yeah. Yeah. So before a tournament, are you stretching before a tournament, or are you just kind of just warming up, putting and throwing?
Yeah, I mean, I'll do a little bit of a dynamic warm up. So for me, like my low back tends to be stiff, and my knees tend to be a little stiff when I first get up in the morning. So I like some like bodyweight squats to kind of get things moving, some Cossack squats to kind of open up the hips, and that usually gets the back and everything feeling really nice. So I'll start with those, and I might, it really depends. Like I'll do more if I'm feeling really stiff, and I'll do less if I'm feeling really good. But then I'll start with like down tempo throws into the net. So maybe like 50% power, and I'll do a few of those, and I'll gradually speed it up to like full power, backhand and forehand. And then once I'm feeling like nice and loose, I'll go toss a few putts for maybe like 5 or 10 minutes. And then I'm good to go.
Perfect. So what drew you to Discraft?
I mean, really, it's like kind of there's a few things. Like one, they're kind of just a cool brand. Like they're definitely trying to have like the best team, and they really prioritize having a highly competitive team, and they definitely create that culture. The fact that they are large and based in the US is really big, because like when I was at Dynamic Discs, I liked the people a lot, but because all of the manufacturing was overseas, like I couldn't always get what I needed. Whereas Discraft, like that's never been a problem. In fact, they frequently will do specific runs of a mold and make the plastic like make it a little bit more domey, or make it a little bit more like stiff, a little bit more like what we like. And that's just something that's just something I don't really hear about other companies doing. So like there'll be like, there was a run of forces they did when I first joined the team, and that's still the only run of forces I throw, because they're just really overstable but really glidey. And I've yet to find a stock one that kind of flies just like that. But there have been a couple of times where they've done like special runs just for us, and so that's been really nice. And then like if I'm being really picky, I can text them and be like, hey, like I need this specific type of zone. Can you go find me some? And that sort of thing. But really, as I became friends with Paige and Missy, and at the time they only had 3 people on their elite team and were looking for that 4th slot, and they kind of recommended me to Bob, and then they were kind of like wink, wink, nudge, nudge, like you should go talk to Bob, like they're interested in you. And so like, Discraft, I think Discraft Elite Team is probably one of the most coveted spots in all of pro disc golf, just because of the reputation of the company and the quality of the product. And so, yeah, very, very, very proud to have one of those spots.
Yeah. So is Yuli your team captain too, or do you have like or do the women have their own team captain?
Yeah, Missy's the team captain as well.
All right, that's cool. So, what's in your bag this season? What are you throwing?
A lot of discs. um, yeah, I mean, not a ton of changes from last season. I think at the start of last year, I had a bunch of molds in the bag where I was kind of in between, and I've really simplified things. So for putters, like I'm putting with Chali SS's still. I'm throwing Chali SS and Chali OS, Zone obviously, and then I've recently added the Zone SS to the bag, and that's gonna be my tour series this year. And then for mid ranges, I'm playing around with the Joy. I don't know if I'll end up bagging it, but it's kind of in the bag on a trial basis. Buzz, bread and butter, Nebula, most slept on disc in the Discraft lineup. And then I've got a Swarm as kind of like a utility disc. And then Fairways, which is probably like my most thrown type of disc. I've got Cigarras, Athenas for like that slower slot. And then for most of my backhand shots, I'm going Vultures. I've got a couple Undertakers, or one Undertaker in the bag right now. I've got a bunch of Vultures. And then for the forehand, I really like Raptors. So I've got 3 Vultures, 3 Raptors in the bag right now. And then for distance drivers, I don't throw a ton of distance drivers, but I've got a couple Captain's Thrashers in the bag, couple Forces, and then Venom for really windy days.
So, do you play like most of your game from fairway drivers instead of distance drivers?
Yeah, I think just the kind of distances that we have on our FPL layouts now, like I almost never need max distance. If I do throw a distance driver, it's because I've got just a ton of room to work with, or because I just need a very controlled hyzer, and I have a little bit more width to work with, so I'll throw something like a force. Honestly, I probably throw forehands with distance drivers more than I do backhands. But yeah, Vulture's probably like my go-to. It's like a really glidey 10 speed, so it goes almost as far as my distance drivers, but it goes a lot straighter. So I just don't need like as much width.
See, speaking of distances, that's why I like watching FPO so much, is because it's relatable. Because I can kind of like picture myself throwing these distances, because I'm never gonna like get to like eagle or anything kind of distance. So it's like I'd rather watch the FPO field and watch you girls like break down the holes. It's like, man, I gotta learn how to do this.
Yeah, you see people golf on a more like human level.
Yes,
Yeah.
much more attainable.
Mhm.
So, of all the wins that you've had so far in your career, what's your favorite win so far?
It's probably still Beaver State, honestly, the first Pro Tour win, because that was in a playoff. I had that big putt to push the playoff. It was kind of a roller coaster of emotions on that day, but then to finally like break through and get it, yeah, it's got to be Beaver.
Who are you in the playoff with? For those that may have didn't see it.
Yeah, that was with. Oh, if you haven't seen it, you should go back and watch it. First of all, it was a very good tournament. Yeah, it was like I want to say I was quite a few back going into the final, going into like hole 15, and then I birdied out. Owen made a big mistake on 17 and took a bogey, and then on 18 she parks it for birdie. I throw it. It looks like I'm going to park it for birdie, but then that hole 18 that year was the old hole 18, which has those logs going around the green. And it was kind of thing where if it had been a foot left, it would have skipped over the log. If it had been a foot right, it would have just gone over the log and been parked. But I just squared the log and rolled away and had about like a 50 footer to an elevated basket for birdie, and then made that push the playoff, and then won the playoff hole, which was hole 16.
That is so cool. Uh, for how many playoffs have you been in like in your disc golf career? Quite a few, or just like a handful?
On the Pro Tour, I think I've been in 4. Because the Throw Pink that I won the year before in 2023, that was a playoff with Kristen, and then Beaver State was a playoff. I remember I played in a playoff at one of the Dynamic Discs Open. I think it was in 2023 Dynamic Discs Open. I lost to Haley King, and then I was in a 3-way playoff last year at Supreme Flight Open with Evelina and Ella ended up winning. So I think it was those, and then there was an A tier back in 2021 where I went to like a 4-hole playoff with Owen. So 5 total, I think.
Does it get easier like the more playoffs you get into, or does it still carry the same like stress? Like, oh my gosh, I have to like do good to win this.
Yeah, the stress level never goes away at any point. It's just the like dealing with it that gets better. And I think now, like having been in that position a lot more and having just like seen it go so many different ways, like recognizing that the other person you're competing against is also feeling all of those things. And so like, even though maybe they've been playing great, like you never really know what's going to happen. And so kind of learning that like trying to predict things just is pointless. Like you just got to play. You just got to play one shot at a time. Yeah.
So how was it playing against Kristen? Did she really carry that presence like of like just complete like stone wall where like she just doesn't mess up and you gotta bring your A game?
So I've made the mistake of thinking that way, and definitely I spent a lot of 2023, closely battling Kristen and then losing, and it wasn't because she ever did anything spectacular. Not to like knock on Kristen at all, but the thing she's very good at is she is very good at just simplifying the game. Like she throws a few shots and she throws them very, very well. She breaks the course down into those few shots and she never tries to do more than what's very much inside of her comfort zone. And so what happens is like it looks easy because it is easy. She's managing the course very well. And then when someone's up against her, like a lot of her wins have come up from just the other person trying to do too much and then fumbling. And I was that person a lot of times. So I think like, yes, it's there, but like she is human. If you look closely, like she makes mistakes just like the rest of us do. I've watched her very closely because I've learned a lot from her. But because of her course management and her decision making are so good that her floor is very, very high. So even when she's having an off day, it's never that bad. And then obviously her ceiling's very high. And so she kind of like exists within this range here of like a high floor, high ceiling, and everyone else is kind of like here and just barely, overlaps with her.
Yeah.
But then you get a lot of players who like, well, they're so used to being a little bit more up and down, and then they finally get that opportunity and they don't quite lock in the way and stick to their guns. Because something she's also very good at is she's very stoic. So it's easy to think that she doesn't feel the same emotions that everyone else feels. But like I said earlier, it's like everybody feels the nerves, everybody feels pressure. And what I've discovered is like, if you don't crack, like she will crack. She's done it before. And you just never know how it's going to go. So it's like, well, just don't be just don't crack, like try, stick to your game, do what you're good at. And like, sometimes it'll go your way and sometimes it won't. But I've gotten to a point where it's like, I can live with it not going my way, but like, let's not lose. Right. Let's be in it to win it, but let's not win it for the other person.
Yeah. So as we're looking into this season, what are the goals for this season?
I mean, really, it's just to, continue to get better, continue to get better at the mental part of the game and being really, really consistent. Really like to get that major this year. I feel like that was like kind of the one knock against me last season. Obviously last season was the best season I've had, but didn't get that major. So yeah, that's kind of the big ticket item for me this year.
Heck yeah, that's gonna be cool to see you get that done. Oh, a comment came in. Someone said that they play for pars. Okay. That's kind of
some
my
people
game.
Do.
Yeah, that's kind of my
Sometimes
game.
it's smart.
Yeah. Everyone like most of my buddies like, oh, got birdie. I'm like, nope, I'm just good for pars. I'm good. Because when I try for birds, I end up with bogeys or worse. So
nice.
So do you have any questions for me as we're wrapping this up?
I mean, not really, unless you got anything you want to talk about.
No. Got any extra sponsors you want to give a shout out before ending this?
I mean, yeah. So obviously, we talked about Discraft, but I'm also back with Team Squatch this year, still on Team Zuka and with Flight Factory Discs. Best way to support me is to go check out teamdiscraft.com or flightfactorydiscs.com. I've got all kinds of stuff up there. And then if anyone's into Whatnot, probably doing another one next week. Those are a fun time. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Any tour discs out this year that people can buy and support you with?
Yeah, there will be my tour series this year is going to be the Zone SS. I have no idea when they're dropping, but if you're following Discraft or you're following me on any social media platforms, you won't miss it.
Cool. Thank you for coming on tonight.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
Good luck this season.